Good morning. Thank you for joining us today. I believe that to remain relevant in a changing environment, we need to constantly evolve. With the recent failure of some of the most trusted brands and success of new ones, one is obliged to relook at not only how we conduct our businesses, but also the nature of the businesses. Today's event gives us an opportunity to understand the possible transformations in business and what the future companies or products will look like through the experiences of our panel who have gone beyond the well-trodden path to discover and pave new paths. I will now hand you over to Yashodhara Bajoria, our day chair, so that we can start. Over to you, Yashodhara.
Welcome. I know it's been an early start, but thank you for showing up in large numbers. Before we begin, I'd like to invite Dr. Payal Kanodia, Director M3M Group and Trustee M3M Foundation, to introduce her foundation to us.
Thank you, Yashodhara. Good morning, everyone. I would like to thank YFLO for having me here today and giving me an opportunity to talk about the M3M Foundation. As we all know, India is the biggest democracy and has entered as the 6th largest economy by the nominal GDP and the 3rd largest in the world by purchasing power parity in the early 2019. India is now poised to improve its global economic rank with an ambitious goal of crafting a $5 trillion economy by 2025. However, in spite of India's optimistic outlook and the recent stock market bull run, the nation still faces deep-rooted, persistent challenges in 2019. The Indian economy is currently facing the worst growth slowdown in 6 years, with an unemployment rate at a 45-year high. Not only India, there is an anticipated global economic slowdown with primary focus herein should be strengthening India's resilience to such a volatile economic situation. In the World Happiness Report published by UN this year, India actually ranks 122nd out of 155 nations. In the Environmental Performance Index, we rank 177 out of 180 nations. Be it other yardsticks like Global Hunger Index, Health Expenditure Per Capita, Human Capital, Education Index, Gender Inequality, and many more. A lot is desired to be done in such parameters. Our schools lack basic infrastructure, our hospitals lack basic equipments, agriculture has enormous pseudo-employment. So around all this, we are actually also scientifically advancing rapidly. We are the 3rd highest number of billionaires behind US and China. This makes me realize that while there's an urgent need to address the skewed growth focus that prevails in India and bring in reforms in a way that we are able to include all the sections of the society and bring forth an equitable growth, we also have the capability and resources to manage and handle it and fast-pace the target of becoming a truly developed nation. We understand our responsibility and hence have created a dedicated vehicle, the M3M Foundation, to contribute towards a better India, a brighter India. We envision the work in a mission mode in reaching out to the most needy geographies in the country. We shall also strive to create replicable models of excellence in various sectors. We have recently started a program to reach out to the migrant labor workers whose vulnerability remains at all-time high due to the lack to access of basic amenities like education, healthcare, and with India poised to have more urban population than rural in next few years, it is important that we address the basic requirements of the migrant population. Our program shall cater to the children of all ages of migrant population through establishment of learning, healthcare centers, nutrition support, school enrollment support, vaccination and immunization, and also in the women labor camps through capacity building skills, digital literacy, health and hygiene, self-defense and life skills. The program also entails as aiding the government efforts in bringing welfare schemes to the needy through establishment of a common resource center. M3M Foundation believes that a more learned young India will contribute to learned decisions and therefore establish a better quality of living for themselves and those they serve. Improving the quality of education, nurturing the mindsets and younger generation by supporting them psychosocially is very, very important. Currently, our projects focus on mainstreaming education and also look at improving the overall cognitive and physical resilience of children through interventions in the areas such as sports promotion, life skills development. We shall also be promoting technical and professional education by providing teacher support and financial support to the economically weaker sections of the society. Rural areas are full of untapped resources with huge economic potential. While smart cities are a good idea, developing smart and resilient villages with adequate facilities in terms of health and education and other amenities like basic infrastructure, quality education, affordable healthcare, sanitation and hygiene, skill development, livelihood enhancement, and convergence with government scheme is what our foundation plans to do. All this will only work if we have a planet to live. Saving the planet must take a center stage for everybody's attention. Environment is a major pillar of M3M Foundation with focusing on green cover, restoring water bodies, reduction of non-biodegradable waste, and so on. We have embarked on a journey, and I understand that it may just be a drop in the ocean. But if more and more institutions and individuals join hands, we can definitely make this world a better place to live in. Thank you.
Thank you, Payal. Now to kickstart the event. In Ernest Hemingway's 1926 novel, The Sun Also Rises, there includes a snippet of dialogue. "How did you go bankrupt?" Bill asked. "Two ways," Mike said, "gradually and then suddenly." The Hemingway law of motion has wide applicability, especially in times like these. From the onboarding of technology by companies to stay relevant, to foreseeing crisis and innovating in the face of success, a lot really depends on how these companies are being led. In a recent experiment, people from similar demographics as us were asked which year did they realize that their mobile phones would be the epicenter for all their activities. Most concurred it was the year 2013. Companies like Airbnb, Uber, WhatsApp, Instagram, and even Flipkart had been in business long before 2013, thus implying that by the time we realize that the world around us is changing, the world has actually already changed. We have with us some bright young minds who will help us understand what it means to challenge the status quo and prepare for a future which not all of us can see. We have shared with you their prolific profiles on our Instagram handle @YFLO Delhi. Please do take a minute to read and go through that. Meanwhile, YFLO is thrilled to jump right into this conversation with Parth Jindal, MD of JSW Cement. Parth has more than just an eye in the world of sports. He's heading JSW Sports, and he's now managing teams such as Bangalore FC and more recently acquired Delhi Capitals. Welcome, Parth. Advaita Nair, Maverick, in her endeavor to make Nykaa's presence first virtual and then physical, she has made sure its retail footprint is a win-win strategy for the brand. Advaita. Aditya Ghosh, CEO of Oyo Rooms, is a lawyer by profession and had no prior experience of running a business when he gave flight to Indigo's dreams. And now in his current avatar with Oyo Rooms, he's excited about the changing times and the impact he can make in the world of travel and tourism. Other than that, I love the t-shirt you're wearing. So that's a really nice t-shirt. Oh, totally, 10 out of 10. YFLO Delhi is particularly excited to have with us Abha Bakaya. Abha Bakaya is not a name that's unknown to anybody, nobody in this room. She's worked with the top TV networks in India and now is the founder of her own startup, the AB Network. Abha, I leave it to you to take things forward.
Thank you. Great to be here with this panel. I think the topic today is businesses of the future, and I could think of no better mix of speakers to really, tell us what the path's looking like. So I'm going to jump right in. Aditya, let me start off with you. Right. Given that you've been part of two stories, that have been instrumental in shaping consumer trends. You started off at Indigo when it was just a fledgling company. It's today a flagship brand in the aviation space. And now you're with Oyo at a time when it's defining itself and it's really expanding its own boundaries at this point. What are some of the challenges that you feel businesses that are shaping the trend, that are ahead of their time, come face to face with, and how does one really overcome them?
Thanks, Ava. Thanks for having me here. Thanks. But thanks for having me here. What a great way to spend the morning, actually. Well, I kind of step back and say, okay, when we are looking at a new business, whether as entrepreneurs or as professional managers who are trying to lead a business, or I think often I see my role as someone who's trying to bring a dream into reality. I think entrepreneurs have this amazing ability to see an opportunity where nobody else sees that, and they have this audacity to dream, and then the teams come together and colleagues come together to bring that into reality. So I think it needs to kind of start with whether we are trying to solve for a fundamental problem that is a hard problem to solve. I think in any of the businesses that my colleagues on the left and right are in, or I've been associated with, you took something which was either extremely expensive or inaccessible, and then said, is there a genuine need for human beings in this, and therefore, how can we approach it differently to try and solve for it in a way that nobody has done it before? Whether it's the airline business that I was involved in, or whether it's the hospitality business today, these are not new businesses. I mean, it's not like we're discovering a new, physical element, or it's not like, we're inventing the new Apple iPhone. It is taking something which has been around for hundreds of years or thousands of years, but approaching it differently so that it becomes more accessible at a more affordable price and reaches many more people and changes lives of people. If we have that sense of mission and purpose, then it gives us a sense of reason of why we are picking the battles that we are trying to fight. I was messaging with a colleague of mine late last night, and I was telling her that pick the battles that you want to fight. Every hill does not have to be won. And that's important, because as we go in head first into these new businesses and we are trying to grow them and we're trying to scale them up, you often, almost every day, gets consumed in the daily fires, and we're not able to look around the corner. And that's what kind of then brings to the question that you asked: what are the typical challenges that we face? There are typically two, or maybe three. There are three. I think one is the daily hustle and the firefighting and things like that, which tends to consume most amount of our time when it actually should be taking the least amount of our time. The second is, how do I look around the corner? How do I kind of see what's going to be around the corner a few miles ahead on the road? And the third, especially in emerging markets like India, where I think most of us work in, regulations and the regulatory framework always lags behind where business is. That is not to say, and I'm actually never be the one to say that regulations are not important, and we can have a separate discussion around why I think regulations are important. But it also requires each one of us and our teams to spend enough time to bring about policy changes, to explain to everyone what we are really trying to do. Let me simplify it with a couple of examples from my previous life and now. When we first came in with a low-cost carrier, and by the way, Abha and I were on a date on, I think, Bloomberg TV at that time, televised.
Show was called Date.
Yeah, televised to like tens of millions of people, and at that time it was the early stages of Indigo, and I was trying to explain why we are doing what we are doing. And it's very difficult at that time for the rest of the ecosystem, the regulator, even the customer, other competitors, to try and figure out what are you really trying to do and why are you bringing prices down and so on and so forth. Or for that matter, what we are trying to do at Oyo today, right? where we are now in 80 countries. We're the third largest branded hotel chain in the world. Over 1 million keys. We add one Taj group of hotels into our system every month, by the way. You know? So yeah, we add one Taj group of hotels every 30 days into the OYO system, right? And then every day we have to deal with erstwhile hotel owners, big and small, around the world who are saying, hey, we are able to charge 5,000 rupees. Why are you bringing it down to 1,100? You know? Why do we have to build out 10 hotels when we can kind of restrict the access and push up prices? And then you've got to spend a lot of time very patiently to explain to people what the vision is. Where can this industry really go? And how can this kind of help everybody else? In 2006, when Indigo started, all the airlines put together were 18 million customers in a year. Today, only about 140 months later, it's about 200 million customers a year. So that is just something which is a cost of doing business. We have to spend the time. Look at what Parth is doing, right? He's taking a sport which is not the go-to sport today, but then creating something which people can sort of envision that, okay, over a few years' time, this could turn out to be a tremendous opportunity and, of course, a multi-billion-dollar business.
Absolutely. So on that, let me actually go across to Parth, because yes, I think you've turned your passion, Parth, and definitely a vision for how you can have a meaningful impact on the lives of those you touch through sports. Started with kabaddi and of course football, which is your favorite. But given that we're in the land of cricket, we have seen a shift. We've definitely seen a shift. But when do you see it becoming a mainstream shift? And what's your vision for JSW Sports?
No, thanks, Abha. It's great to be here. And fun fact before I start, Adwaita and I were in class for 10 years together. So it's phenomenal to share a panel with her.
I'll take her 10 years and raise it.
Yeah,
Abha and I know each other
yeah.
21.
15, I'm not that old.
We were both 5 years older than that.
So, but we were in the same class. Like we shared a section, and we used to sit next to each other for the whole.
Yeah, I knew him when he was a lawyer. So.
No, so I think when it comes to sports, obviously for me it was an amazing opportunity and an incredible passion to get the opportunity to actually invest in sports. I think India as a country is such a large country, 1.3 billion, and I always, whenever I was abroad, I was in boarding school in England, and then I went to college in the States. Whenever the Olympics or any 4-year event would come around, it would be amazing the kind of camaraderie and the kind of passion would exist either in England or in the US. And it would be really, really sad to actually be an Indian at that point of time, because everyone would ask that, 1.2, 1.3 billion people, why can't you guys win any medals? And the same responses I used to say what everyone else says, that government is not doing enough, we're not spending enough money on infrastructure, there's no knowledge of sports science, there's no knowledge of nutrition. And then come the next year when the Cricket World Cup would happen, it would be a completely different story. We would be, beating our chest, we would be saying we're the best, we're the world number one, we have Sachin Tendulkar, Virat Kohli and the works. And today, if you look at cricket infrastructure in the world, India is the best. If you look at the number of talent that's coming out of India in cricket, we're the best. Our second string or third string team can beat any team in the world. So, there was a huge dichotomy between cricket and the other sports. And I felt that, it was very important to actually, instead of blaming the system, actually enter the system and try and change the system from within. So, we started in a very small way with football. That was the first major investment that we made, was Bengaluru FC. So, there again, football is by far the world's cheapest sport in terms of you don't need anything but one ball, and you can be 5 people, you can be 10 people, you can be 22 people, and you can have a great game of football going on. And it was amazing and baffling that even though there were pockets of so much passion in Indian football. India was not doing well. As you know, India was, as of 3 years ago, ranked 173rd in the world out of 200 football playing countries. So there again, we studied the ecosystem and realized that the best way of actually making an impact in football was to own a team in the professional league of India. We entered in the I League, then we moved into the Indian Super League. But it was starting a youth academy, going one step below. You have a lot of NGOs and a lot of organizations in India today, including the government, that focuses at the elite level only. And it took me some time to understand, but when someone is already at, let's say, a Commonwealth Games gold medal level, it's too late to actually change their technique or to change their habits, to change their mode of training, to actually make them an Olympic gold medalist. You have to start much younger. And that's what we realized even with football. So, the youth academy was the hallmark of what we did. And it's amazing for me to share with all of you that over the last 6 years, there's been about 37 different Indian players who have represented India in football. And out of them, about 23 have played or have been part of the Bengaluru FC Youth Academy setup. So that was a way in which we have contributed. India has moved from 173rd in the world to today we're 97th in the world. We just had a phenomenal result against the Asian champions Qatar in Doha, where we went into their den and we drew against them in a World Cup qualifier. So, it was things like that. And I realized that, like what Aditya was saying, that in terms of approaching sports, I realized that the way we approach business today, whether it's Oyo, whether it's Indigo, whether it's Nykaa, whether it's JSW Steel, we are all world-beating companies. We compete with the world's best, and in any parameter, you can take Nykaa, you can take Indigo Airlines, you can take Oyo, you can take JSW Steel. We can beat the Koreans, the Japanese, the Americans, and all of them. There's no problem. Why can't we do it in sport? And if the same people approach sport as we all approach business, then the results will come. And that's the very basic way in which we that I've looked at it, and use the same principles of whether it's understanding your customer. In Adwaita's case, it would be understanding all of you. In my case, it would be understanding what an athlete wants and needs in order for them to actually excel, and working with the government, working with all the federations. And that's why we started with football, moved to kabaddi, and then into Olympic sports, and cricket was something that was a business decision. But there again, team that was historically finishing 8th and 7th and 6th, why was Delhi doing so badly? And it was just understanding what was going wrong and trying to apply the same principles of business or same principles and adopting those into the team. And last year we lost in the semi-finals, and I think the team is only going to go from strength to strength. So it's
How many of you are IPL fans? At least a few. I was like, room full of women. I was like, let me gauge this. Yeah. Okay. No, that's fantastic. And the fact that we're also seeing so much more accomplished at world sports, Commonwealth Games, Olympics, so on, our athletes, and a lot of them women, in fact. And I think Sakshi Malik has trained at your academy. Again, it just shows or is validation of the fact that if you put your mind to it and sort of put the right systems in place, that we are capable of so much more. Adwaita, let me come to you. And I think there have been several references to Nykaa as well, and I want to give you a chance to talk to us about the kind of opportunity you see there, as in from the inception of Nykaa to where it is today, almost a unicorn, I think. And we've seen the brand go from strength to strength. A lot of other tech companies have had certain challenges. They've not necessarily been as successful in striking the right formula. What do you think has worked for you? Do you feel that Nykaa has something that has a better understanding, perhaps, of what consumers are looking for and what they will continue to look for in the years ahead?
Thank you. So again, just such an honor to be here and to also share the stage with these guys. Really wonderful. So I think just to kick off, do you shop on Nykaa? Can I see with a show of hands? Okay, so that's good, but still not where we need to be. I was hoping for like 100% kind of in this audience. But I mean, for those of you who don't know, Nykaa is a beauty, multi-brand beauty online player. We started, I shouldn't say online, it's online and offline. We started the business about 7, 8 years ago. And the insight that my mom and I had was sort of that when an Indian woman wants to buy beauty products, where does she go? You buy a kajal at your kirana store, you buy a perfume at the mall far away, but there was no one-stop shop. And we felt there was really a need for that one-stop shop. And over the last 7 to 8 years, we've had a sort of a wonderful trajectory, and today we're the 4th largest beauty retailer in the entire world, both online and offline. So it's obviously been a fabulous journey, and if the panel permits, at some point I'd love to tell you that it's not just all about the highs. And I think in panels and audiences like this, it's also very important to say that there are so many lows. The business started from a tiny room where there was fungus growing in the bathroom, to years and years of no growth, to 40, 50 investors telling us they didn't believe in the idea. So, I always feel like it's also important to kind of say that success just doesn't happen overnight, and it doesn't also look as glossy as it kind of seems from the outside. But to really answer your question, which you posed to me, which is what makes Nykaa sort of work as of today, 8 years in, I would kind of attribute it to 2 things. The first is consumer understanding. What I've really enjoyed about the last 8 years, and it's been a journey for me, is just understanding the Indian woman. I feel like time after time we were told certain statements, and time after time the businesses prove those statements wrong. So first we were told Indian women won't shop online. They won't buy lipstick online. They need to try the color. Guess what? We now sell like 1,000 lipsticks like every 2 minutes. We were first told that please don't open stores in non-metro cities. The girls sitting in Guwahati and the girls sitting in Ahmedabad don't want to buy your products. Ahmedabad and Guwahati are 2 top stores. We were told that your tier 2 consumer is so different from your tier 1 consumer. Today when I go to Ludhiana and meet our customers, they are as savvy, as cosmopolitan as the girls sitting in this room. Now we're getting into fashion. I'm not sure if you're aware, we started a platform called NykaaFashion.com. Everyone keeps telling me that Indian fashion is all about discounting. I just don't believe that. I don't think fashion needs to be about discounting. I think all of us have had that moment when you find that right product and you have that joy where you're like, oh, I could dress like that. And I think if somehow we can bring that inspiration to fashion, it could be so interesting. So now with fashion, we're trying to say, can we reinvent the way people think about discounting? Again, in fashion, when I ask people, where do you shop from? Where do you buy workwear? Where do you buy evening wear? The only answer I get is Zara. Where do you buy lingerie? The only answer I get is Marks and Spencer's. The question that we now have to reinvent and think about is why are Indian women only going to international brands? Is there not something that we can do in India? We have all the manufacturing capability here. Can we not make it work? So I think through the Nykaa experience, we've had the nimbleness to sort of respond, question, and sort of ask, but why do you think that the Indian woman can't do this or that? And I feel that we've sort of built our business questioning these assumptions and sort of gotten closer to what the Indian woman really wants. And I think what's been really interesting is that what the Indian woman wants changes every 6 months, what the Indian woman is saying is totally changing. So again, to give that in perspective, 7, 8 years ago, when we used to put up a photograph on Instagram of one of our girls wearing a lipstick, all the Indian women used to say, the comments used to say, but her lips are chapped and they're cracked. Today, if you put up a model image, all the Indian women are saying, why are you editing your photographs? Before, you used to send packaging without bubble wrap. Why are you not packaging it properly? Today, everyone is only talking about sustainability. So I think what makes Nykaa successful, and partially because it's run by a bunch of women, is that we're really trying to stay alert as to what does the Indian woman want. And then I think the second area of success really comes from, frankly, my mom's philosophy, which is all about sustainability. So she has said from day one, and it's really been drilled down in each of us, is that we are building a business that has to be profitable. And we're not building a business where we have to raise tons of money at a fantastic valuation. That's not what we're trying to do here. So our entire business, now almost $1 billion in valuation, has been built on $50 million worth of equity. And that means frugality every single day. We are frugal about our offices, we are frugal about the perks we give, we are frugal about everything we do. And today I sort of see the merit in it. To be honest, 7, 8 years ago when we used to go into a Sequoia office and they would say, why won't you take this massive check? And my mom used to say, well, we don't want that kind of money, we don't want that valuation. I used to in the car ask her that, but I do think we need that valuation, I do think we want that money. And now in retrospect, I just feel like it was such a sensible way to build the business. And I think now we're EBITDA positive, and I think for the year ahead, we're looking at a significant EBITDA margin. And it's really quite exciting, I think, to build a business that will be sustainable. And I think if Nykaa can achieve anything and leave any kind of legacy, it would be to say, can we build a sustainable, profitable business and rethink the way startups are sort of run in the country?
Okay, so, taking off from that, and Parth, you also are spearheading several of the group's businesses. You've also launched certain verticals, like paints, which may have synergies in the group, but you've also brought in your own mindset and your own vision with regards to those verticals. Again, talk to us with, when you do kick off something new and you have an eye to the future, what's the thought and what are some of the challenges that perhaps you deal with?
No, so I think, one of the big challenges at a family-run business was how to enter the business and actually diversify or expand the portfolio of companies. So our main business is obviously steel, and that was something that I guess will always remain. As long as the last name is Jindal, they'll be in steel. So I think the idea was how to actually use the advantages of being in a core economic sector like steel or cement or power, and diversify and move into other verticals. So, this again was an insight that came when one visited the market, that today the way steel or cement is sold, there are markets for that in every city, in every town. You go to a certain part of the city and you'll have a dealer, and you'll go there and you'll see that there's a TMT, a guy who sells the steel rods, a guy who sells bags of cement, and very often right next to that person there is a person selling paint. And this was an idea that actually started from there, that there's a huge synergy in terms of you need steel to build a home, you need cement to build a home, and you definitely need to paint the home. And why can't JSW actually be the one-stop shop solution for someone when they think of a home? So that was the way the idea started. Now, obviously, there are very entrenched players in the sector, Asian Paints, you have multinationals like Kansai and Aerolac, you have Berger, you have Dulux. And it was very difficult to actually say that, one's going to enter and challenge them. But then again, I think the opportunity was that the products that today the consumer wants are evolving. And today when you want to buy a color of paint, like it's a very interesting stat. India is the only country in the world where you are paying differentiated pricing for color. So whether you buy white or you buy red, you pay a premium for buying red. Whereas everywhere in the world, color is not a option. I mean, it's not a price decision. You can choose gold, you can choose blue, you can choose black, and the colors are all priced at the same level. And this was a way in which competition was actually making additional margin from customers. So we were like, that's wrong. We shouldn't do that. We should price all our paint and all our 1808 shades at the same level. Second was the world has moved to water-based, low VOC paint, which is odor-free and less harmful for customers. Whereas the shift in India is very much like an internal combustion engine versus an electric vehicle. Everyone is trying to delay the shift as much as they can, because they have factories and they've invested hundreds of and thousands of crores in their units, and they don't want to make the shift. So they're not offering 100% water-based products to the customers to try and sweat their assets as much as they can. So we were like, it's actually very important to be organic, to be environmental friendly, and to offer 100% water-based paint to the customer. So whenever we enter a new business, it's extremely important to have a differentiated product and to have a product that is something that is going to be future-proof, so that for the next 30 years, our product can hold true and can actually make the customers feel that they're buying something that is going to stand the test of time. So those are the ways in which we have tried to differentiate, and very, very simple, small, you call it in India, we call it jugaad innovations, that in India, the cans are all round, but the roller is cylindrical. So the roller doesn't fit inside a Asian Paints can. So the painter has to remove the paint onto the lid and has to put the roller and then roll it. And that results in a lot of wastage. So we were like, why don't we make the can square so that the roller can fit inside and easily go in to, and the painter and the contractor can get it, have less wastage. So these were the small things that we did, and I think obviously it's taking time to educate the consumers as well, as the amount of marketing and branding might that an Asian Paints has is obviously very high. And we are not, we are not venture backed in terms of we have to live within our means. So it's that's the process that takes time. But I always remember a thing that my father told me is that if he could beat Tata Steel in his lifetime, why can't I beat Asian Paints? So that's what we're going for.
You know, what I love hearing from this panel is the fact that all of them are genuinely, knee-deep in finding out what the consumer wants in their businesses, really sensing from the grassroots of India, which way the winds are blowing. And I think, Aditya, you also, of course, in your business are seeing that. How do you grapple with the kind of information overload you must have, given the kind of consumer feedback, the trips that you're making, the hotels that you're signing on from across the country, across the world? I know technology plays a big role, but despite that, it must be overwhelming.
I think, for any business to be sustainable and be relevant for a long period of time, it has to stay relevant to what the customer's needs are. Often we make the mistake of asking what the customer wants, and the customer wants a whole bunch of things. And I don't know about your customer, but the customers I've dealt with in the last 20 years, they want a lot of things, they just don't want to pay for it. That's the only problem. So trying to kind of distill it down to what is it that really matters, and when that person is holding that credit card or takes out his wallet, what are those 3 or 4 things on which he or she is going to make that decision to buy that goods or service? So I'll give you a stark example. The years that I was in the airline business, there wouldn't be one dinner I would go to, or or a school reunion or something, where someone would not have an opinion on the chicken jungli sandwich and the or today for that matter, everybody will tell me, but that lane going into your hotel is very narrow. Yeah. But, and I always end up asking, when was the last time that any one of us were sitting in front of the screen and you were about to book a airline ticket, and you were like, what is that airline that serves chocolate mousse? I want to fly that airline. Customers talk about a lot of things. That doesn't mean that's what they need. Right? And that doesn't mean solving those wants is going to be great business sense. We need to keep coming back with what are those fundamental needs that we are trying to solve. So in the business that I'm in today, we kind of distill it down to a very simple thing. What we are trying to do is building safe and secure, clean and hygienic, affordable rooms at convenient locations. That's all we're about, right? In my previous business, it was getting you from point A to point B on time with your bags safely. Everything else, you can solve the whole, 9 yards of the red and blue carpet and the spa and the gym and this, that, and the other. But if that is not solving those 4 core needs, customer is not coming back to us. And that's the way, I think, if you look at any businesses, successful businesses which have been around for a long period of time, they keep staying core to what the needs of the customer are, as opposed to all the things that we hear in a customer survey. But today what's happening is, often people point out that there is a challenge, there is just so much going on, there is just so much noise, and there's so much volume of information, whether it's social media or whether it is customer surveys and things like that. I kind of see it as a positive in the sense that if, without even my asking people, if people are willing to spend the time and the effort to tell me all the things that they did not like or they liked, and for what reason, in great amount of detail, right? If I could find a simple way of distilling that back to those 4 needs, it is an unending supply of advice for which I don't even have to pay anyone. You know? And then, so today, for example, at OYO, 70% of our customers give feedback to us every day. Every day, 70% of our customers give feedback. For a young company, 92% of our customers are organic customers. So we don't pay to acquire those customers, right? Okay. So what now happens is we're able to take this masses of data and use tech to distill it down in a very easy to understand format. I'll give you a very unique, but something that you'll relate to, where we use data and tech. In a traditional hotel company, what happens is, let's say you're in this hotel, and Mrs. Suri has a hotel here and has a hotel, say, 10 kilometers away or 20 kilometers away. And there are maybe a couple of hotels, maybe 3 hotels in one large city, right? So it's very easy to see how a hotel will behave in Bandra Kurla versus how a hotel is behaving in Nariman Point versus how a hotel is going to behave in Ghatkopar, right? And you know how the hotel is going to be priced. And you also know that depending on what kind of traffic it is, business or not, these are the kind of customers who will come to them. Now think about the OYO world. In 3 square kilometers, I may have 20 hotels, which are priced similar, look very similar, experience is not very different, at least not while you're on the screen looking to book a hotel. Why is there a statistical Pareto always that 20% of the hotels or 15% of the hotels or 15% of your products are driving 80-90% of their revenue, right? It's like Fair and Lovely for Unilever, right? Drives 40% of their revenue, right? So why do these 4 hotels out of the 20 keep bringing customers back? So here's how we use something called image science and data science. So we look at how much time did the customer spend on that screen, right? And how did the image of that hotel that you're seeing compare to the image score which we have set on a massive sample set? And how are these 2 things coming so close to each other? So then over a period of time, relatively short period of time because of the amounts of terabytes of data that we are going through, we know that this kind of customer likes this kind of furnishing, likes this kind of paint on the wall, likes this kind of color, likes this kind of photograph, and lighting, and so on and so forth. Now, remember, we are adding 25,000 keys a month. So therefore, by next month or the month after, the next 100,000 keys that will come up will be according to what that customer really needs or prefers, versus the traditional way of doing it, set up a mock-up room, get people to come in, get 100 people to experience it, then do a survey, and depending on how that person felt or not, they will determine it. And we're putting in like hundreds of thousands, millions of dollars of investment going into CapEx and construction and material. We're the largest buyers of televisions in the country. We're the largest buyers of cosmetics in the country. We're the largest buyers of linen in the country. And that slight difference can save, or you can end up spending millions of dollars. So I think data in itself can be intimidating, but if we can kind of translate it back to what we really want to see out of that data, I think it makes it very, very helpful, because then you have the answers before you even ask the question. So I don't know if that kind of helps in thinking about it.
Okay, I do want to get everyone's questions in as well as we go along, because I know that a lot of you are also entrepreneurs and will have your own questions, specific to the different companies or businesses as well as to our guests. So just raise your hand at any point. It's all good. Parth, I also know that you interact with and sometimes invest in startups or young entrepreneurs that are coming up with interesting business ideas. What do you look for when you're looking for ideas that could evolve over a period of time? What do you find interesting? Do you look for a product? Do you look for an idea? Do you look for passion? Is it something that you feel could be game-changing?
So I think the first and foremost is the sector. So we take a view on the sector. So for example, the sector that Advaita is in, we've invested in a much smaller version of Nykaa called Purple, and they're also doing extremely well. So I think first is the sector, second is the founder, because the passion with which the founder comes in with their idea, at the end of the day, this goes against the grain of the entire philosophy of my family, because my family is always like, you should never invest in anybody else, you should always invest only in yourself and in your business. But I was like, there's so many new age businesses that are coming, which we as JSW or as a family may not have the right adequate skills to do. Like, there's no way we could have built a Nykaa or we could have built an Oyo. There's just absolutely no chance, because that's not in our culture, that's not in our in our philosophy. But why miss out on the future, and why miss out on the next big businesses in the country? So I think the way of marrying the two was, we can learn a lot from so we have about 6 investee companies, and every day, every month when I review them or when I sit with them, there's something new I'm learning. Like today, this is a phenomenal insight that Aditya gave on how they look at building, or they look at taking over new hotels or new buildings and converting them into hotels. So I think the learning that one has is amazing. The second is that the idea has to be very good. Like we've just invested in a technology healthcare startup, which is trying to aid doctors in curing patients using technology, because today that's a major problem in the country. So we look at the idea, and we look at the founders, and we look at something that is not within the culture. Like, I would never invest in a manufacturing startup, because that's something that we think we know what to do and how to do it better than anybody else. But when it comes to technology, when it comes to investing in things that will really define the way the future works, we look at those opportunities at a very small scale, but it's something that I feel that it's very important, and it's also diversifying your risk, because today, like, look at what's happening to India today. The country's slowing down, whether it's in steel consumption, power consumption, cement consumption, all of that is down. But when I talk to any of our startups that we've invested in, they're not seeing a slowdown. They're still growing at unbelievable numbers, and it's amazing to see that kind of shift. So as a family, one also has to look at diversifying your risk. So having all your eggs in one basket is not always the best way of doing business, or it's not the best way of conserving your wealth. You have to diversify. So this is one way in which we're looking at that. So the other is sports, because I genuinely believe that sports is going to be a multi-billion-dollar industry. And I think as and when disposable income, as it is increasing in India, there are only 2 things for which people are going to tune in to live television. It's your live sports and live news, and even news nowadays is available on apps and on your phone. But live sports, you need to tune in there's nothing else which will make you tune in at 7 p.m. on a Friday night to watch Delhi Capitals versus Mumbai Indians. It's only, the IPL or any sport. So that was another way. I think I felt that investing in sports is an amazing opportunity. It's a media play. In fact, it's not just a sports play. So those were the reasons why I looked at in starting a JSW Ventures, or looked at starting at JSW Sports, and I think it's critical, and I would urge, looking at what's happening around us with so many big groups facing so many problems. I think a lot of the reasons why groups go into problems is they have not diversified properly, or they've not diversified their own risk, and you see promoters pledging their shares, everything, and we've done it. Like, we've all done it, but is that the right way of doing business? It may have been earlier, but it's surely not now or going into the future.
All right. Advaita, whenever we've interacted, there's nothing about you that singles out a victim card as a woman entrepreneur, which is fantastic. I think that's something to look up to. And I want to get a sense from you as a woman entrepreneur, however, are there any specific challenges that you do come across, or anything that you'd like to share with other such entrepreneurs who sometimes do say they feel that they don't manage to get ahead because of, I don't know, they feel that investors don't take them seriously enough, or they perhaps feel they don't get as much encouragement or support in their ventures or business ideas? Is there anything that you'd like to share with them?
Yeah, sure. So, to be honest, I've never felt that there's anything, I mean, I can't speak for anyone else at all, because I know that there are challenges that women do face, but for me, at least personally, I've never faced a challenge. I think I'm better than most men that I work with. So, and I think Parth and I went to school together, so he can vouch for me.
She's believed that from day one.
Yeah. So frankly, for me, I've never felt anything about being a woman has held me back. I just don't see any of the weaknesses to be gender specific. I think everyone has weaknesses, whether you're a man or a woman, and it really doesn't have much to do with gender. I think, my mom has again been a fantastic role model, because I think she had 2 kids, had a marriage, had a lot of commitments, and she still managed to sort of work and chase her dreams through that. So again, that is kind of the paradigm in which I live, where it's always been, yeah, you have to do that, but you also have to succeed at what you do in work. So to be honest, I've not faced it. But what I would like to talk about really is that it's not about being a woman or a man, it's about entrepreneurship. And I just really feel the need to kind of speak about this when I come on panels like this, because I met a couple of you before this, and I feel like some of you are, trying to be entrepreneurs, and you might be looking at the stage and thinking that, oh wow, look at these 3 guys, they've really figured their shit out. And, I just think that there's this problem in today's society of just projecting the most fabulous stories without actually kind of just telling people that everyone sort of starts from the same place and everyone has sort of the same challenges. And so if, I was talking to 2 girls here who are starting a nightwear brand, and whatever you're feeling today, you're telling me that we're a little nervous to ramp up, should we really invest, are things that all of us, I'm pretty sure all 3 of us sitting on stage, have had those same insecurities. And I think if there's anything I can leave you with, it's that entrepreneurship is really, really tough. And like I said, the first few years was so ridiculous. I mean, our full co-founding team quit on us within the first 6 months. We were out of money so many times, could not pay salaries so many times. Investor after investor saying no to us. Customers complaining. There were days where we really didn't know whether we could go on. To the extent that I could not sleep. I mean, it really does affect your emotional stability and balance as well. And I started thinking about can I really be an entrepreneur? Do I have what it takes to sort of be tough and get through this? And I took some time off, actually went to business school, reflected on it, and then came back to it. Suddenly feeling okay, let me try this again, let me give it a shot. But I just want people to know that it's a journey, whatever you're trying to do. It's your own personal journey with entrepreneurship. There will be days which are very low. If you can emerge stronger, if you can learn to take those challenges in the right spirit, if you can learn to see those challenges as invigorating, that's a great place to be. Because I do think entrepreneurship is incredibly fulfilling, right? There's nothing better than waking up in the morning and jumping to want to go to work, whether it's for a good reason or a bad reason. Whether it's because the customers are out of control, or whether it's because the sales from the prior day are good or bad. It's lovely to have something where you can pour your heart and soul into. But you also need to learn to deal with the lows. And so I want you to know that lows happen to everyone. And so yeah, I'm not really into this whole glossy, Forbes 40 under 40, Fortune under 30 under 30, these guys have really cracked it, because I think no one's cracked it. I think everyone's struggling with the same stuff day in, day out. There's stresses, insecurities. Can I do it? Am I the right person to do it? Is this business going to scale? What are the investors going to think? Can I meet the valuation target? Everyone has it, from me to my mom to, I'm sure, the 2 people sitting on stage.
And I think it's also about setting your own milestones, whatever they may be, and not perhaps going by, as you said, what's so out there. There are a lot of intangible, smaller milestones that are also fulfilling at a personal level. Aditya, you have always been a pioneer in terms of supporting women, diversity at work, the Indigo girl power that you see today. I think all started with him, and a huge push on that. Creating opportunities for women. And today you're also investing in women entrepreneurs. So talk to us about why you felt it was necessary to go out there, support more women to come into the workforce.
Look, I feel very passionate about this subject. But before I say anything, whenever a man says this, it always sounds very patronizing. So, so so you got to excuse me for being a man. But I think, look, I just, as I've kind of had the opportunity to work in a lot of small cities, I've had colleagues who have come from rich conservative families, modest conservative families, different types of, towns and villages that this country makes up who we are. There is still a lot to be done. It is it is a battle. And if we are going to sit here and say, no, it's all okay now, and we grew up in these public schools and everything is fine, it's not true. The top of the funnel is so narrow for women. Whether it is as an entrepreneur, whether it is a young professional, whether you're a business leader. It starts off with little things like you're in a meeting, you may be the founder, and the men will start talking to the men. Okay? You are looking for a new resource in your team. I have very rarely found people who will just repeatedly go back to the recruitment team and say, if you're going to show me 10 candidates, at least 5 of them have to be women. I don't even want to see the resume unless I see that gender diversity starting from there. I will always still choose whoever is the right person for the job, right? But if you are going to keep constricting the top of the funnel, then you will never have the next set of leaders, right? Third, perceptions, right? God forbid if you're a woman and you dress well, or make the sin of wearing makeup, right? Okay, then of course, how many times do women in your workplaces or you yourself have tried to become more of a man, speak louder, start screaming in meetings, And unless we really talk about that, and unless we really say that this is a battle that needs to be fought, change is not going to happen. Let me give you a couple of examples, right? And yes, I have 2 roles, right? I invest in my personal capacity, and I've invested in a number of startups which are women-led, because they're just great entrepreneurs, great founders. They found the right thing, and they have just a tremendous amount of zeal and enthusiasm in what they're doing. And in different things, from consumer products to services to coffee chains, whatever. And then, as OYO, of course, or back in Indigo, I think it's just a big part of our agenda. But let me give you a couple of examples, right? So years back, we were trying to get more women in line maintenance in engineering. We always had a lot of women at Indigo, for instance, and I'll talk about OYO as well. Started off at about 18%. When I left, it was 44% of the workforce was women. When I say that, immediately people are thinking, oh yes, of course, you had all the women cabin crew. But Indigo actually had 33% of our managers as women. 33% of the leadership team was women, right? Highest number of women pilots in the world. Highest number of women airport managers in the world. I've got one ex-woman finance colleague, Praneeth, right? Largest number, head of tax woman, head of accounting woman, right? Head of operations control woman. Youngest woman pilot, Indigo. Youngest examiner pilot, woman, Indigo. Right? But that's because you have to go out there and make a change. So I was telling you about trying to get more women in the line maintenance. And I was like, there are all these women in planning sitting in the office. Why don't we have more women on the ramp in the engineering teams? And no, they just leave. And I'm just like, why does that happen? So one day I'm at the hangar and I'm talking, and then I suddenly realize, so all of you have flown from the Delhi airport. So Indigo operates from the Terminal 1D, right? Or used to at that time. Our engineering hangar is where between what used to be Terminal 2, so closer to T3, that's where our hangar is. But it has a road access. Now, I figure out that that road access to that hangar does not have a woman CISF security officer. So all the men enter through there, the women have to come to 1D, get frisked, enter the airport perimeter, take a slow, speed-governed bus all the way up to the hangar, and then take a speed-governed bus all the way back. So you're actually spending an hour and a half extra at work just to access your workplace and back because you don't have a woman CISF security guard there. Okay? Unless you actually go into the depth of why the problem generates or where the problem generates from, you'll never be able to make that change. You can statistically look, oh yeah, 43% workforce, that's the highest in the world. That should be very, very happy. Let me give you another example. So we decided we should have more women drivers. And we just couldn't solve the problem for 3 months. And I'm like getting frustrated, right? This report is coming back every time with 0 on it. And then I kind of dig deep and I realized the Haryana Road Transport Office in those days would not give a commercial driver's license to a woman. That's why you don't have women truck drivers in India. There is a lot to be solved. There is a lot to be solved. And India has its unique challenges. And it has its unique strengths. Only about 6 days earlier, I think 7 days earlier, I tweeted a HBR report that just came out, which showed that 68% of the gender gap has finally got closed. And this is 148 countries. And it showed that in health and education and survivability, it is in the mid-90s, 96%, 98%. But in political leadership, the world average is only 22%. Here's a weird contradiction and paradox, right? In India, you've got all these women political leaders, but education, health, sanitation, hygiene is sitting in the 20s. So we have to find a way for women to be truly equal and for women to be equal in the way they want to be. And likewise for men also, by the way. Back to the point that Adwaita was mentioning, and yesterday was World Mental Health Day. I think, as a country, as a culture, we're not accepting of failure. Right? We do not, forget about celebrating failure, we don't even want to acknowledge it. It is so difficult for someone to be weak. It is so difficult for someone to, I keep using this expression in my colleagues, saying, do we have a space to share our fears? Right? And that goes for men also, right? But women especially, they'll cry into their pillow, but not have the ability to stand up and say, I have no idea what we're doing. Right? Okay. And I think, when I talk to some of my women colleagues, a lot of the time they're like, but what to do with it? If I have to get noticed, I have to speak louder, I have to stay on at work longer, and I have to apologize to, go, see my kid or whatever it is. Not because if someone is unwell or there is a parent-teacher meeting, most organizations will say, go. Of course you should go back home. But where is the freedom to say, you know what, I just want to see my kid. There's no reason. I just want to see my kid. Right? And I think there is a massive amount of journey to be walked here, as long as we realize that this is something that has to be front and center in our agenda. Many of you are privileged to come from wealthy families or have access to some amount of personal wealth. If you can find ways to support women leaders, women entrepreneurs, and not just as a CSR thing to do, because it is very difficult for 2 women, 3 women with no support, with no family backing or anything, to be able to walk into a private equity fund and be able to say, they'll always be like, okay, so who's your CFO now? You know, as if women will not be able to understand what EBITDA means. It is a reality. Why are there, how many senior bankers are women? How many senior manufacturing leaders are women? Right? It cannot be happening by accident. There is a bias that is built in, and we are perpetuating that bias. And you have to swing the pendulum to the other end to make that hard change. Sorry, I probably spoke. Yes, yes.
So I definitely agree with it, that there is a systemic, much larger conversation, of course, which makes it structurally harder for women to kind of hit their stride. But as he was describing a lot of the situations that he says he observes in his multiple workplaces or around him, I couldn't help but think that that truly is not the way it works at Nykaa. Like, we have 1,000 employees, and I think 700 of them are women. And you should see the way meetings run when they're led by women. I mean, because much of our leadership, I think 70% of our leadership, C-suite and couple levels below, are all women. So the way women lead is actually very different. When I'm hearing that, women in the room have to talk louder and assert themselves more and can't bring their emotions, you should see our meeting rooms. It's totally not like that. I don't think any woman in Nykaa feels like, oh, she's got to shout. In fact, when someone shouts, everyone's like, why are you shouting? Like, just relax and make your point, Or at a place like Nykaa, it's totally, there's so much flexibility when it comes to understanding that someone has to go home at a particular time to get something done. It starts from the top. We all go home at 6 o'clock because people have things to do in the evening. There is not a culture of trying to stay back and do such things. The strongest people in finance are women. I mean, so it just actually, one way when I'm hearing you and I'm feeling like, wow, I work in an organization where I have 700 women, but I don't see these challenges that women in our organization are facing, it makes me think that a quick way to kind of help stimmy this is to put women in leadership. Because once you have women in leadership, they know how to deal with other women. Hearing you say that women feel bad when they dress up, I mean, Nykaa is full of super well-dressed women who walk into every meeting commanding the room, not caring how deep is their neck, short is their skirt, and all the men are just in line. And so I think it comes from no one's asking, why is she wearing makeup? So I
think what tends to happen is that I think we have to create these beacons into the norm and not let an Indigo or an Oyo or a Nykaa, remain as the outliers. Right? I think, and there is it just happens so many times. There's a woman-led movie that comes out, and a lot of my friends know that I'm a movie buff. Everybody will be like, your daughter must see this, and my wife is like, no, my son should see this. Exactly. So I think it's just that, and fortunately, and I truly mean it, and I was thinking about it yesterday because I was thinking about this morning. And I was thinking about it last night, and I was thinking, I've just really been fortunate that, or just the fact of life, that in all the teams that I've worked in, my direct teams, always the women have been in majority, right? Right? So and some of my immediate team members are sitting here, like 3 of them VPs in this room, by the way. And we're trying to hire this one guy, right? This analyst, and he's a boy, okay? And and we're like, the ratio is going to tip, right? But I think truly, what you're doing, Advaita, is absolutely laudable, and I just hope that we have, as you said, more number of women leaders, and not just women independent directors as a checkbox in the corporate governance checklist, but truly people who can kind of lead. Sorry.
No, I think while we're talking about this, it's really important to actually know the numbers. Over the last 5 years, India has gone, so the active number of women in the workforce who are qualified to work has dropped from 36% to 26%. There's a 10% reduction or a 33% reduction in 10 percentage points or 33% reduction in women who are qualified and who have been in the workforce who are currently not in the workforce. So that's a extremely alarming stat. So it's, And let me give you at least my context, because the industries that we are in, other than the people who are in the we employ about 57,000 people, and apart from 1,000 people who work in the head offices and who work in departments which in where historically or there have been more women in the actually on the ground when it's coming to steel making or cement making or power making, we had very few number of women. Our gender ratio earlier used to be about 18% as JSW Group. It's dropped to 11%. And one of the biggest reasons for that is the laws. So the government has come up with a new law that women engineers cannot work in the night shift. Blanket law. Now, now there are reasons for that, but now when you go into industries like ours, or when you go into BPOs, or when you go into these kind of textile manufacturing industries, etc., which are 24/7 shops, now you have to change your entire business model to accommodate having women in the workforce. Now, it's not fair to tell the men that you will only work in the night shift. You will not work in the morning shift, you will not work in the afternoon shift, you will only work in the night shift, because we have to have only women in the day shift. So this is a major problem that has resulted. A lot of the reasons why commercial licenses are not given to women in certain states is because they're like, no, रात को गाड़ी चलाएंगे, वो allowed नहीं है, government की law है. Now this is where the industry has to talk to government, and mechanisms have to be brought into the ecosystem which will allow. So we at JSW, we went to the government of Karnataka and said that we will have special buses with security which will allow women to work in the night. They still rejected it, saying, sorry, it's not allowed because some industry will misuse this permission we are giving you. We are not allowing women in night shift period. They can only work in general shift. Now the number of roles you have in general shift are limited. So it's a very, very serious problem, because at the end of the day, the manufacturing sector contributes the most number of jobs after the agricultural sector in our country. Now, if you're removing the manufacturing sector from employing women in low and in the low level jobs, and you're only saying, how will the women grow? So that's the big challenge, at least we are facing. And it's a very alarming stat that even within JSW, 18% gender diversity has dropped to 11, and this is after trying to combat it. So this is the reality of.
May I make one more comment? It's also a question of perception, So I had maybe 6,500 women colleagues as flight attendants, right, in my previous job. And of course, the general perception is they're all trolley dollies who are trying to giving out coffee and sandwiches, right? And there's this glamorous role wearing makeup. And almost in every public forum that I've spoken to, right? And of course, and the other thing that they become bodybuilders the moment you reach the aisle. You've carried a heavy bag all the way from home down to your cab, putting it into the cab, taken it out, put it on the trolley, brought it here. But when you have to put that final thing, can you lift it up for me? Right? I mean, it's amazing, right, what happens, right? But and I just want to talk about flight attendants just for a second, because, it is one of those things, and there are many such, professions where the perception is so different from the reality, right? When those flight attendants are looking into each other's eyes and they're serving you tea, coffee, and sandwiches, they're not checking how many sandwiches there are in the trolley. They're constantly checking, is there a hijack threat? When one of them realizes there is a hijacker on board, they cannot speak to each other, they cannot scream, they cannot shout, because you do not know how many other hijackers are on board. They have eye signals to show that now press the code, the cockpit door gets locked down. That's the first thing that happens. If there's a burning airplane and you want to keep your Louis Vuitton bag in the front row, that 2 seconds is going to cost a life. Those flight attendants are trained to evacuate 180 people from a burning airplane with half the exit doors shut down in less than 90 seconds. It'll take you more than 90 seconds to move from here to the coffee stall. And at that time, if one person trips, that's 2 lives gone. And the number of times people argue, no, can't I keep my bag here? I'll keep it here, I'll keep it here. You know, freaking A, man. I mean, you're playing with someone's life. Now try this. Tonight, in all the fancy homes we stay, take a gold chain in your hand and walk out in the alley behind your house. Just walk out in the dark. Walk alone. Even the men. And suppose someone just comes after you, what will you do? You'll run, you'll scream, you'll call somebody, you'll knock at somebody's door. When this happens to you at 39,000 feet, there is no one to call, nowhere to run, no phone call to make. Now imagine this. You have your elderly mother, small baby, some loved one in your arm, and that person is dying. What will you do? The only person standing between life and death at 39,000 feet up in the air, with no doctor to call, no one to help, no call to make, is that flight attendant. Right? And now imagine how many years, how many flights have we taken, and what is the perception we carried versus what is their actual role. We make fun of their English. We make fun of their makeup. We get upset when someone asks them to move our bag. That's what happens when we go through a lifetime of people telling us certain things which are not the reality. That is the battle that we need to fight. That is the battle that needs to be fought.
Interestingly, just to end, please, let's have some questions. But
I think for that 5 minutes, there was a pin drop silence.
I think what's also amazing is the kind of opportunities these entrepreneurs and these businesses are creating for women in India. I think close to 30% of women drop out after entry-level jobs and 50% drop out after their first child. So despite the fact that India has been growing, you're right, the number of women in the workforce has actually come down. So 1 part is mindset, 2, of course, what corporates can do, and 3, entrepreneurship, to encourage more women to really go out there and take that risk and do something of their own. I think that's what will change the shape of things to come. But I think we have a question at the back, so yeah. Do we have a mic, or do you?
So when I first moved back from college in the States to India, and one of the first projects that was given to me was a retail steel project, and the project was that even though JSW Steel's products are as good as Tata Steel's products, Tata Steel commands a 10% premium in the retail channel to JSW because of its superior brand. Because everything we touch today is Tata, from the water we drink, to the salt we have, to the tea we have, to the TV we watch, the cars we travel in, some of the airlines we fly in, all Tata. So that was a very big challenge, that how does one improve the brand of JSW? So you're a steel company, there's no reason to spend on above the line or TV advertising. You don't have the budgets, you really can't do that. There's only limited amount of below the line advertising you can do, wall paintings, hoardings and all, which personally I feel is a really big waste of money and resources. So it got me thinking that how can JSW as a company and as a group improve its brand? And sports stood out as one such opportunity, and Olympic sports stood out as the bigger opportunity. Because if you look at what we're trying to do, what JSW is trying to do is building India, right? Steel, cement, power, infrastructure, etc. But nothing builds the moral fiber of a country like sports does. And nothing gives you more pride and passion than when Jana Gana Mana plays at the Olympic Games or at the Asian Games. That moment is truly precious, and it signifies a lot about how the country is rising. So I went with this very different branding proposal, which obviously got shot down by your O&Ms and your Low Lintases and all the big creative agencies saying that this is a outlandish idea. But I said that if JSW can promote and own the space of Olympic sports in the country and actually put the money into building infrastructure, which is core to what JSW does, and support athletes and really build pride in them and make them excel at Olympic sports, then our brand would catapult. And it's amazing that when we started, we were the 107th most recognized brand as per Interbrand and Brand Equity, most recognizable brand in India in 2012. And last year, we were the 34th most recognized brand in India. So coming to the point on women, I think in 2016, India won only 2 medals. Both were women, Sakshi Malik and PV Sindhu. When it comes to sports such as wrestling, such as boxing, such as judo, such as weightlifting, such as you can stereotypically think of men, but in India, women are excelling far more than men in these sports at the world stage. We have at our Olympic Institute, we train about 300 athletes, and out of those 300 athletes, about 190 are girls and women. So and they're excelling. So next year at the Tokyo Olympics, if you remove the men's hockey team, and I'm pretty sure the women's hockey team will qualify as well, so it should even out. But women will be a higher number going to the Olympic Games than men from India. So it's amazing, and just to give you all a little bit of context on the challenges we faced in supporting Olympic sports, our academy in our institute, the Inspire Institute of Sport in Vijayanagar, which is home to these athletes, is a residential academy, and we scout athletes from all over the country. So the youngest athlete that comes into our center is about 8 years old, and the average age today is about 16, and we go all the way up to your elite athletes. Now, our athletes come from a majority of states of India. So, your wrestling and boxing athletes are predominantly from Haryana, Punjab, and the Northeast. Your judo athletes are predominantly from Northeast, Kashmir, and from Maharashtra. Your track and field athletes are predominantly from the south, and your swimming athletes are again coastal. Wherever India has a coast, historically, we've been able to produce better swimmers. So when we started and we went to the local tournaments and local village competitions, and we actually selected athletes, the parents had no problem giving away their girls. No problem. उनकी पढ़ाई आप देख लोगे, उनकी खाना पीना का आप देख लोगे, ले लीजिए लड़कों नो नहीं, मेरा लड़का हरियाणा में ही अखाड़ा में ही रेसलिंग कर सकता है, आप कर्नाटक में क्या करेगा? So we actually started with more girls than boys. Boys didn't want to come, their parents didn't, and their coaches didn't want to leave them. And then as the results started coming, when amazing result happened for us. One of the first major results was obviously Sakshi Malik winning the bronze medal. Sakshi was a girl we identified in 2012 when we had just started. We supported her for 4 years, and then she went into Rio and she won that bronze medal. And that sparked a complete revolution. Today you go to Rohtak, every girl wants to be a wrestler. So it's an amazing thing. So similarly, there was a judo boy in Manipur that our coach had identified, our Georgian judo coach had identified that this boy is very good and we want to bring him to Vijayanagar. So the parents said, no, boy will not leave, but we have a daughter. And she, at home, they keep fighting, so she must be strong. So we said, okay, show us your daughter. And her name is Tababi Devi, and you please remember her name because she's going to be something very big. She came 2017, she came to our institute. Last year in Argentina, she qualified to go into the Youth Olympic Games in Buenos Aires. And she became the first Indian ever to win a silver medal in judo at the Youth Olympic Games. Now her brother has come and her sister have come. They've both come. So it's amazing. And these stories of women doing well, like a Mary Kom or a PV Sindhu or a Saina Nehwal or a Sakshi Malik, you know, these are the stories that are inspiring not only other girls and women, they're also inspiring the men. Today, Indian boxing has come this far purely because of Mary Kom. There's no other reason. You know, so Karna, this morning before this meeting, I met Karna Maleshwari. Karna Maleshwari was a bronze medal winner at the Sydney Olympics in 2000. And she's the only weightlifter in Indian history to win a medal at the Olympic Games. And she has put in her life savings to start her academy in Yamunanagar in Delhi. So I said, no, JSW will support your academy and you will support weightlifters not only in your academy but in our institute as well. Because these are the heroes that India needs to inspire the next generation of weightlifters or athletes. And it's an unbelievable thing. I would invite all of you to come and see the institute because the women and the girls, you know, are progressing at such a rapid speed. Even the boys are, but the level of competition within India and in the world, you know, it is a fact that it is definitely more accessible and possible. And Indian women have better, you know, fundamental genes to actually become world champions and world beaters. So it is happening, and in our numbers, we try and keep 50-50 as the ratio because our girls' hostel and our boys' hostel, we built the same number of beds. But now we don't know what to do because we have more girls who are actually better than the boys. So it's a very interesting and it's a very exciting phase, and I'm very confident. Like if you see in Tokyo next year, you know, Hima Das or a Vinesh Fogart or a Mary Kom. Now, just yesterday, 4 Indian boxers, all 4 women actually, are in the semi-finals of the World Championships in boxing for the first time in Indian history. So it's amazing, and men are doing really well as well. But I'm just saying that the potential is the ability for us to impact women. And for women to actually go out and compete in the world in Olympic sports is definitely an area that not only JSW Foundation and JSW Sports, but even OGQ and Go Sports and all foundations have realized because they just are competing and able to win medals for India far easier than the men are.
Hi, can I ask a question to Aditya?
Yes, you can.
Hi,
Where
so
are you?
I'm
Yeah.
Tanvi Goyal and I'm a financial planner. So Aditya, I completely agree and I cannot believe that, you know, you've brought this topic here about women not handling financials themselves. So I started my company Wealthaware to educate women about, and my vision is to empower 10 lakh women to become the financial planner for their family. So, you know, in my workshops, I have realized that 90% of the women, they feel themselves that they do not have the ability or the skill set to manage the money for the family. And despite the, you know, Ivy League degrees that they might have, and despite the exposure that they have, which might be equal to the men in the family, but it's just that mindset which needs to be broken. And I feel that that mentorship is really missing and lacking in our society. So I'm sure, like when you mentioned that in the Indigo as well, so you made sure that, you know, there was and extra special effort being made. So just like that, special mentorship has to be provided at each level.
Thank you for your comments. Any other questions?
May I ask a question?
Okay, lots of questions. Okay, any
May
for
I ask?
Advaita? Let me go to Advaita next.
No, actually,
Yeah, go ahead.
Actually, I had for Parth and for Aditya, because the question I have for Aditya, Advaita has already answered, which is when the negatives come in, too much of them, when you're really low, how do you work that out? And for Parth, I had a question that you mentioned. I know you're very passionate about sports, I can see, but I want to shift to medicine. You mentioned a little this thing that you're using technology for building up medical facilities. So my question is that to you. Thank you.
Okay, we're going to run out of time, so some stuff we'll take offline and answer what
Maybe
you feel
I can answer the healthcare question offline, but Aditya, you want to answer it?
I think it's obviously I actually think that at various points of time in the day, you will go through these lows, and it's very important to first acknowledge that. My team may disagree, but I don't usually flip out very easily. They're laughing now, but at least I pretend to be pretty calm-minded for most of the time. I know it sounds cliched, but what has always helped me, and I started my career as an intern when I was 21 years old. I met Abha when I was 22. She was 5 years old at that time. And my first salary was 900 rupees a month. And it was 900 rupees a month for a while, then it became 1600 rupees a month, then it stayed like that for a year, then it became 2600, stayed like that for a year, went to 4600. What has always kind of helped me, and it helps me even today, is to kind of see that there are lots of people who are going through far more than I am. Really. I mean, if I kind of step back and start complaining about the traffic and things like that, that's a first world problem that I have. And if I am kind of missing an EBITDA target, or I am not being able to add 25,000 rooms and I'm being able to add 20,000 rooms, I have to think of the people who are trying to put 2 square meals a day on their table. And therefore, and I know it sounds very cliched, but when I was 21 years old, or when I'm 44 today, I think, yeah, I think that really helps me kind of level it out and say, you know what, buddy, you got a lot of things going for you, and you've got to just kind of see that, And then the other thing that helps is ask for help. And what I hope helps my team. Okay, this I guess only they will answer, is that when I'm in a bad mood, when I'm stressing out, I'll send them a message. We have a WhatsApp group or whatever it is, and then I'll send a message or something and say, look, I'm in a bad mood today, so just stay out of the zone, and that usually means that, look, at least I'm human, whatever it is, I was stuck in the lift or whatever it might be, I'm just in a bad mood today, and just. Of course, they are like, then my mood will be okay, and I'll be like, okay, why is everybody not smiling? And Anita and Smita will be like, okay, you're the one who's kind of going through these mood swings. Like, what are we supposed to do? Like, read the water? So I think just acknowledging it helps a lot.
On that note, a big round of applause. We'll have to take the other questions offline. Yeah, a big thank you to all three of you. They run big businesses and are very busy people, so I'm just really glad all of you could be here today and spare the time. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, and thank you especially for some of the men that I see in the room, and a huge round of applause to all of them. Come on, guys. I didn't even know trolley dollies was a term. Like, now, oh my God, wow. Yeah. But anyways, can I have Karishma Bedi to please come and present the vote of thanks, please? Thank you.
On behalf of YFLO Delhi, we'd really thank you for taking this time and coming to share your insights and your vision with us. We're very grateful to have you here. We don't cut trees at YFLO, so we plant trees in your name, and I'd like to call upon a few of my fellow members to come and just say thank you to you. Mandira Lamba, would you please come up and thank Mr. Parjindal for being here with us today? I'd like to call upon our past chairperson, Ms. Seema Jindal, to please come up and share the token of appreciation with Mr. Ghosh. I'd like to call Trupti Gupta, our past chairperson for YFLO, to please come and thank Ms. Nair for being here. May I ask Rindima to please come up on stage and thank Ms. Bagai for moderating this entire session. It'll make for a nice photograph as well to match together today. Ladies and the few gentlemen here, round of applause, and all the whistles, please, for our speakers and moderator today. We'd like to call upon the committee to please come up for a picture with our guests.